I'm Lizzie.
And I'm Brenda.
And welcome back to Small Step Society, Episode 7, Accepting Change.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode.
Yay.
Before we get into the episode, of course, we have our weekly segment, Song of the Moment. What's your song of the moment?
My song of the moment is Santa Fe from Newsies the Musical. I started listening to it because there's this new musical called The Great Gatsby, and Jeremy Jordan is in it. And he is in the original soundtrack of the Newsies Santa Fe. So I was like, I just kind of want to listen to him sing. So that's why I started listening to it. And it's a very well-known song. And also my car is a Santa Fe.
Oh.
So I just think it's very fitting that I'm listening to it.
It's very special.
It's like a little connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your song of the moment?
My song is Pilot Jones by Frank Ocean.
Oh.
Yeah. Good stuff. You know, on the topic of music, I'm so glad, like, we can just stream music online. Because back in the day, you had to go to the record store, and then you'd have to buy the record, and, hey, like, what if you only had a 50? Like, I'd be like, hey, can I buy this record? And you'd say,
oh, it's $20.
and I'd say, I only have a $50 bill.
Oh, I can give you $30 in change.
Okay, fine, I'll accept the change.
Whoa, accepting the change.
Accepting change?
Whoa,
That's the name of this episode.
that's crazy.
You know
Let's
what
get
that
into
means.
it.
Okay.
Can you tell me the importance of accepting change?
Yeah, so that's really important. Like, change is really important to growth, you know. You live a lot of years as a human, and it would be so boring if everyone just stayed the same. And yeah, it's really, I mean, everyone, you know, seeks out a sense of stability in their life, and that makes a lot of sense. But stability doesn't have to equal rigidity. Yeah, so you can, like, stay constantly at peace or something, but you can still have, like, goals you're working towards, or you can be willing to accept change, willing to, I guess, grow along with the world that you live in. But it can be really hard to accept changes, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, what reasons?
I think one of the biggest one is the fear of the unknown. Because when things are changing, you don't know what's coming, right? And, like, if you're in a workplace, you might be wondering, oh, can I do this new role? Or, like, can I adapt to this?
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and, like, even I think you start to kind of question your abilities, and, like, you're kind of scared that, like, you might be embarrassed because you're not, like, capable of doing something, and you can't really prepare for change because you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
So I think that's really hard.
Yeah, exactly. Another one is being afraid of failure.
Big one.
Yeah, which kind of goes, it's like the workplace thing, but, like, just generally speaking, it's often, like, you don't want to accept change because you're so comfortable with what you already know that you don't know how, like, this new opportunity or this new path in life, how that's going to turn out. And so you just don't even want to go towards it because what if it doesn't turn out the way you, like, expect it to in your mind?
Yeah.
And with that, also fear of rejection.
Yes.
My two big ones. Yeah, but, like, fear of rejection, kind of similar to failure, but just, like, I guess more specific to maybe a social situation. Like, if you have a changing friend group, or what else? Like, accepting change. Like, maybe you're scared to apply for a job because you're afraid that you're going to get rejected. But hey, you'll never know until you try.
That's so true. Yeah, I think this is more, towards the workplace one, but loneliness could be a factor too, especially if you weren't part of, like, making the change, or, like, in discussion of the change part. So you just feel like things are changing and your opinions weren't heard. So you just kind of feel like you're in an island and you're like,
So it's kind of like a spiteful, like, it's kind of spitefully against the change.
No, it's like you have to navigate this by yourself.
Oh, okay.
Because you, like, didn't know it was coming.
Oh.
Versus, like, if you were part of, like, changing, you could have prepared. Or, like, you know what I mean? This is more like if change was just thrown at you.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's a very, like, niche thing. It's not super general, I don't think, but
okay, yeah, no, I understand that. There's also battle fatigue. So this is after like struggling many times before in a repetitive form of change. For example, like if you have a new boss every so often, you might be less willing to put up with the new boss
Yes.
every single time because you've had trouble with, I guess, like you've had trouble with working under a new boss because it's such a different change and you've had to deal with that so many times that you're just tired of it at that point.
Yeah, you're just tired and you're like, you know what, I don't care.
Yeah.
And kind of with that comes loss of control, is when there's a different authority or the way things are being done is different, then you're like, oh, I kind of don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I think our sense of self-determination is like the first things to go when we're faced with a potential change or like a hardship. So that's another part too.
Yeah, and then there's also, I guess, like the theme of not wanting to let go of the past and being scared about the future. So just like an anxiety about the future. Maybe like depression about what's left behind. It can be really hard to let go of the past. Like there's a lot of good memories in your past. And if you're like, for example, okay, let's say like you're moving schools or something. Like that can be really hard because you have a really good friend group at the school, but like maybe you're leaving because like the academic curriculum wasn't rigorous enough for you. Even though obviously there's a lot of I guess opportunity and something to look forward to in that new school, you're still going to feel really sad about leaving your friend group behind and like leaving it behind that environment. And then also you might be terrified to go to that new school because you don't know what's there. So it's like a combination of everything we've talked about.
Yes. And like with that uncertainty, again, we don't know what's happening. And it just kind of feels like you're walking off a cliff blindfolded,
Yeah.
like getting thrown off.
Really does.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think people like always would rather, I mean, when you have difficulty accepting change, I think you'd just rather like sit in the misery instead of, you know, heading towards that unknown because it's terrifying.
It is so terrifying.
I think there's also the fact that like change is just different. Like people are creatures of habit, and habits are comfortable. Routines are just automatic, and change requires like it requires deeper thinking. You have to be really conscious about what's going on, and that can often be uncomfortable, especially if you've got into the comfort of having that routine. Yeah, and like it can really disrupt. Like say you're moving houses.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. Like it can be. It's obviously so extraordinary to like be able to like say you're going from an apartment to a house. Like that's a big change, and it can be terrifying because it's so different. Like even though that's obviously a huge accomplishment in someone's life, it's different because you have a different route to work. You have a different place that you're living in.
Yeah.
Everything's so different, and it's completely not your habits or not your routine. So.
And like change is a lot of work. You have to feel uncomfortable while you're going through change. You need to adapt to change, which is a lot of work, and you just feel uncomfortable. And I think no one really wants to do more work than they have to, so I think that's why accepting change is also a little difficult. But
yeah, and then with that, I mean, there's also like the fact that sometimes you're just impatient. Like change, like it's a huge learning curve. You know, you have to put in that work to overcome that learning curve and get to like the good parts of change. And sometimes people just don't want to wait through that. You know, maybe they just want to take the easy way, which is valid.
yeah.
So we've went on and on about why accepting change is so hard. But I guess the better question is maybe how should we get better at that? How should we get better at dealing with change?
Yeah, I think this is a common theme, but introspection, just being aware of how you feel and like don't be in denial, like take small steps to
Overcome it.
yes.
Yeah. Also, it's funny that you made that joke because you should also find humor in the situation, you know? It's not really, well, it's kind of an example of change. Like, you know how people always say if you have trouble, like, with public speaking or, like, giving a speech, you should imagine the audience in their underwear. Like, that's finding humor in the situation. Like, yeah, it's terrifying to be public speaking, but hey, at least there's something a little less heavy or a little less scary to focus on.
I think that's a really good one. Another thing is to talk about the problems more than your feelings. And this doesn't mean like suck up your feelings and don't feel it, but like call out your anxiety and like whatever is like making it hard for you to accept change, so you know like how this is distorting the way you're thinking and like perceiving the information. And then you can like look for practical advice, and then this way you can like focus on the problems that you need to solve rather than just being stressed about it or like thinking about how anxious and how stressed you are.
That actually reminds me of like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is used a lot for like anxiety, depression, just a lot of things. But I think like a huge part of it is instead of like focusing on what's going wrong, like focus on the root cause, which I guess is the same thing. Like instead of focusing on the feelings, or think about the problems that are causing those feelings and focus on what you can change, because feelings are so much harder to like deal with and unpack.
Which we kind of talked about last week, where we were like, you can't, life just gets thrown at you, so you can't control life, but you can control how you react to it with like the little tiny things. So I guess that kind of connects.
It's like, it's kind of like a head over heart thing, so like balancing the two and not just only looking at a problem emotionally, also looking at it logically. Another one is like, just don't stress about stressing out, you know. I mean, I can't stress that enough.
So true. So there's a Stanford psychologist named Kelly McGonigal, and she argues in The Upside of Stress, which is a book, that your reaction to stress has a greater impact on your health and success than the stress itself. So stress meaning whatever is causing you to like feel a certain way, like.
I think we talked about this in some episode. I don't even remember which one, but like, so I'm taking a personality psychology class, and we talked about how like there's a certain threshold to where like conscientiousness or like stress is good for you. And like stress can be a motivator. I mean, we all know this. Like, if you're not stressed about anything, you probably won't get anything done, because
that's why procrastination is a thing.
But then if stress like I guess passes the threshold, it just becomes kind of anxiety. Like, it just becomes like this thing that's gnawing away at you, and it's not going to cause you success because stress is so draining. Instead, you'll just focus on that stress rather than focusing on getting towards the goal and reaching it and overcoming that change. So a good way to, I guess, combat stress is when you're starting to feel stressed, ask yourself, I guess, like, why is that stress appearing? What is that helping you accomplish? So is it trying to help you excel at an important task? For example, like if you're giving a speech, like, is that why you're stressed? Is it helping you like stay motivated and focus on that? Is it trying to help you endure a period of temporary change? Is it trying to help you empathize with another person? I mean, there's just so many reasons why you could feel stressed, but it's better to focus on why rather than the what.
Yes.
And just focusing on the fact that you just are stressed and only maintaining that mindset.
So we talked about how we shouldn't stress about the stress, right? But how do we combat the stress?
Right. So this is from Henry Ford Health. So one thing you can do is plan things out. You know, we've talked about this before. If you feel a lack of control, you're probably going to feel stressed. So, you know, maybe keep a planner. Like if you're moving houses, maybe keep a like task list of everything you need to do, what you need to pack. Even like if you're packing for a trip, something like that. What else? Like reframe your attitude. So like I just said, thinking about what's causing the stress rather than just thinking about why it exists. I mean, thinking about why the stress exists rather than just thinking about the fact that you are stressed. You know, reflecting on what's going on. So introspection, basically. But give your thoughts a voice, you know, write it down. Write everything that's going on in your mind down, you know, that might help you. Create some sense of normalcy. We said that people like routines, people like habits. So, you know, if you have a routine, that'll give you some peace of mind. So you can still maintain some sense of like your normal life, I guess, while a change is happening and while you're stressed about that change. And then, of course, lean into what makes you happy. Practice that self-love.
Yes.
You know, you found your hobbies, your interests, your friends. Well, maybe give them some time. And that can help you, I guess, take your mind off some of the change and some of the distress that's in your life.
It's actually a really good point, because I feel like with school, sometimes I get so overwhelmed with the amount of things that I have to do. I just get stressed, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel paralyzed. Like, I know I have to do it, but I can't do it because I'm just so stressed. And I noticed that like just simply writing things out doesn't really help me. I have to like put it in my calendar, like an hour and a half, I'll do this. And then it really motivates me, because I'm like, okay, it's in my schedule. I can see like how long for what I have to do. So that's actually really good.
Yeah. And with that, like, you need to reflect. It's important to reflect on like how your stress relieving methods are, like how successful they are, because I used to be the person where I would like schedule every single thing out, and I'd be like, okay, I'd like do things back to back to back to back, and like I'd put in my calendar, and that would give me peace of mind because like I knew that I'd have time for everything. But then I'd like really beat myself up if I didn't get it done in exactly 1 hour, if I like went a minute over. And so then like reflecting on that and saying, okay, I need to put like 15-minute breaks in there for me, and just being really mindful about how you're treating your mind and how you're treating your stressful self.
So true.
And then of course practice gratitude. I mean, half of the changes you're scared about, they're good things. You know, starting a job, that's so amazing. Getting a move into a new place, wow, that's like so many new opportunities. So try to keep that in mind. You know, keep that gratitude journal. Talk to friends. Like, get excited about whatever's going on in your life. And if you can't see the good in something, if you can't see the good in the change, talk it out with someone. Maybe they can.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me to a different point where you should like focus on your values than your fears. So reminding yourself like what's important to you, like kind of practicing gratitude, where like going to find a friend, where doing your hobbies, interests, and things like that. There's been a series of studies by Jeffrey Cohen and David Sherman, and they study how people of all ages in a range of circumstances, it could be like new schools, new relationships, new jobs, whatever it may be, can strengthen their minds with a simple exercise, which is spending 10 minutes writing about a time when a particular value you hold has positively affected you. And this works because by reflecting on a personal value, like it helps us rise above the immediate threat and like makes us realize that our personal identity can't be compromised by one challenging situation. Like we're made up of several pieces
that make that bigger
of life. Yes. And like one thing isn't just going to tear us all down.
Yeah. It's kind of like seeing the bigger picture, you know. We've all heard that before. Like, sure, there's something that's like a setback or something that seems scary, but at the end of the day, like you've gotten through so many other things you thought were scary. So what's the scary thing? And even if it's scarier than other things, hey, you're a little older, you're a little more mature, a little wiser, a little stronger.
Yeah.
And so with that, you should accept the past, but you should also fight for the future. So we're never free from change, but we're always free to decide how we overcome it and how we deal with it.
Yeah, I came across this story, I think from Harvard Business Review. It's about this guy named Viktor Frankl. So he returned from 3 terrible years of the Nazi death camps to find out his mother, brother, wife, and his unborn child they were all dead. And everything like he loved, everything he knew was different, right? He lost everything. But as like fall became winter and winter gave way to spring, he like began to discover that even though he could never go back to the life that he loved and he once had, that he can still he was still free to meet new friends, find new love, become a father again, enjoy music. And he called this hope in the face of despair as tragic optimism. And obviously this is a very extreme example, but I think if we move past from the bitterness, then we can like kind of allow ourselves to grow and see a new perspective and kind of accept the fact that we can't go back, but we can always make ourselves a new future.
Yeah, it's about learning from those difficulties. Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you believe in, but like a lot of people believe that like everything happens for a reason. And so even though maybe something bad happened in your past, especially I guess relating it back to change, like even if like you had a bad experience with change in the past, like it taught you something, and now you have that lesson to take and move on and maybe embrace change again and try something out. And then also like not hold that fear in your heart, because fear can be a motivator, but it can also be a setback, you know.
Yeah.
Everything, stress, fear, everything in moderation.
Yeah.
But with that, also you shouldn't expect stability. So also in that psychology personality class, we talked about how people expect their personality to stay the same throughout their year. So if you give someone a test, okay, like say you ask someone when they're 18, you say, how has your personality changed in the last 10 years? They say it's changed a lot. And then, but if you ask a different group of like 18-year-olds, how much do you expect your personality to change in the next 10 years? They'll say not much, barely, a little. But then you like look at them 10 years in the future and they'll say, sure enough, they'll say it's changed so much. Point being, there's no point of expecting yourself not to change, because whether you like it or not, whether you even notice it or not, you will change. And I mean, those 28-year-olds, you know, the people who said that they wouldn't change 10 years later, they're probably much better for it, and they're probably really happy with the way they changed. They just weren't able to see it when they're 18 because people are so, I guess, like stuck in their views. Like, you know, practicing openness and not expecting stability, but expecting those values, like those big picture values that you talked about, to stay the same, and then expanding upon them, you know, growing, learning more about yourself, learning more about the world, and changing with it.
That actually reminds me, I think the personality test with MBTI and those things are really popular. And I saw somewhere that those are not good ways to like put yourself in a frame, because you're constantly changing and there's only 16 of them.
Yeah.
So you can't put yourself into a box that's like 1 out of 16. So I just thought that was very interesting because it kind of goes along with.
No, that's actually, we talked about that.
Oh,
in
really?
the class. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, we talked about that because, yeah, a lot of people say it's really bad because, well, not only that, like, even if you take the MBTI test, like, days apart, your result changes half of the time, because that's the thing. Like, you're not only are you changing over, like, those 10 years or over those 5 years, like, you're also changing within the moment, you know? Like, depending on your mental status and what's going on in your life, what's going on at that particular time, like, even just the way you look at things changes. But you're not looking at that kind of change as a bad thing. So why would you look at it more in that general, I guess, frame of mind as a bad thing? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Stop it.
So I'm going to go on a little philosophy tangent.
Oh.
Which is, normally Brinda's a little philosophy tangent, but I'm going to take over today and accept this change. We'll move on. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So a Greek philosopher named Heraclitus once said, "There's nothing permanent except change."
True.
There's a whole field of study based on his like ideals, and it's like, since the very nature of life has changed, to resist the natural flow and like resist this change is like resisting the very essence of our existence. That's what their whole study is about.
Yeah. That's
very interesting.
It's very evolutionary. I mean, like, think about it. If we didn't change, we'd probably still be dumping our waste onto the street.
Oh, like from the 17th century.
Yeah, like we'd be doing that. Like, we wouldn't even be washing our hands properly.
That's true.
Like, think about that, guys. You wouldn't even be able to watch this podcast. We wouldn't have technology.
It's
all
so
changed.
true.
And you would have had to just pay $50 for that record from the record store.
And get $30 back in change.
Just kidding.
Yes. Actually, there's this song called For Good from Wicked, the musical. And it's the two main characters, Glinda and
Dorothy.
Elphaba.
Oh.
Yeah, Glinda and Elphaba, the two main characters, are, at the end, they're saying goodbye and they're saying, "Hey, like, you changed me for the better. You changed me for good." So not all change is bad. I mean, some changes could be bad, but
yeah,
let's try to look at it in a positive lens.
Yeah, I think people, like, you only resist change because you're so conscious of it. So maybe try to take your mind off of it, because we change each other. Yeah. Friends change each other. That's why you have to choose good friends. I didn't. Just kidding.
Whoa. Oh, I think we should have a talk later. Whoa.
Just kidding. Yeah, but you should choose good friends. Like, you surround yourself with things that change you. We are a product of everyone around us and the environment around us, and everything's changing us. The world is rotating all the time. We are changing position in space right now. Think about that one, guys.
Oh. That's crazy.
Yeah. We're always changing. Everything's changing. Change with it. Lean with it, rock with it, change with it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was a great little wrap up to this episode. But guys, speaking of change, I will say this. Some exciting things are about to happen on this podcast. So stay tuned for the next episode. It's about to be really fun. Maybe there'll be other people with us.
We have a little surprise for you guys.
A little change.
So, I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
You'll get to hear a few new perspectives. I can't talk too much about it.
No more spoilers.
Okay, fine. But if you guys want to keep up and maybe see the next episode too, follow us on Instagram. I never say this. Follow us on Instagram at Small Step Society Pod. You can also find us, our video version, on YouTube, and you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, anywhere you can find podcasts except where you cannot.
Exactly.
And with that, episodes are every Sunday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.